What's up guys, I'm Grandmaster Shaman and welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be moving on with our number 40 through 21 top 100 anime of all time. This is the last one where everything is ordered. Do remember real fast that the top 20 anime are not in necessarily the exact order. I tried to order them as best I could with ones that were most consistently at the top. It kind of is a day by day thing. Some days I think, this anime is my favorite, and some days I'm like, well, this one is the one that I feel like I like more. It's kind of hard to explain, but the top 20 anime have been pretty much in that realm of thought before. So without further ado, we're going to move on to number 40. So Angel Beats is about a bunch of people who are dead, and they're trying to figure out what this world that they have found themselves up in is about. And it's really difficult to explain more of the plot without giving some of it away, so I will choose not to do that. But one thing I do have to say is that if you haven't seen Angel Beats yet, I mean you need to. Um, it has a lot of feels, but one thing I do have to say why it is number 40, I wish it was higher. It just the ending was a little bit rushed, and this anime could easily have been 24 episodes long to really make the plot develop more smoothly. It was a little bit rushed. It's kind of like Charlotte in that sense. The reason it isn't higher is because it was kind of rushed at the end here. So moving on now to number 39. Well, Golden Time is about this guy who ended up losing all of his memories before a specific incident, and well, he's moved to Tokyo. He's kind of afraid of facing his past, and he meets there um, a guy named Yana and his creeper stalker girlfriend. Not really his girlfriend, just this chick that stalks and likes him, Kagakoko. And Kagakoko is a great character. I mean, I know it sounds weird because she's definitely a stalker, but this show is not available in dub, but the plot is really, really intriguing as he trying to face the facts that he may remember some of the past, and what happens if he reverts back to his old self. What will happen with his current life and his current friends? What if he forgets all of the stuff that happens now? Not to mention the whole thing between Yana and Coco and him and these other characters as they all try to figure out this mixed match romance. It's a very, very solid show. Definitely recommend. Moving on now to number 38. Well, this one had to make the list, right? Fairly newer on the anime block, but it has hit the anime world by storm. Absolutely terrific anime so far. I can't really put it higher on the list. It has a really, really good first two seasons. I really, really like a lot of characters, and for a show that, I mean, at this point is basically mainstream, that doesn't happen very often. So I'm kind of shocked that it was as good as um, as it was, considering that I didn't really have that expectation going into it with my previous experiences with mainstream anime. Obviously, if you haven't watched it, it's basically mainstream. It has a dub and a sub. In fact, season 3 had a simul dub for the first half of the season. The first, I believe, 13 episodes came out the day the sub came out. So that was impressive, by the way. But definitely, if you have not checked out My Hero Academia, what are you doing? Moving on now to another mainstream anime. So this one was a popular anime a couple of years ago, and season 2 is about to come out. But I have to say that the comedy, the fact that they make fun of the superhero genre as well as they did in this show is terrific. I gotta say that the bicycle superhero is definitely my favorite. And this show, I mean, I can understand people who don't like it. Everybody's got an opinion on pretty much anything, mainstream or not, which this is, again, just like My Hero Academia, it's basically mainstream. This show makes fun of the superhero genre and tropes about being overpowered, and it's funny because you would think One Punch Man, he wins every time. How could that be fun? How could that be interesting? Well, I mean, it just is. It really is. The comedy, the character development, as well as him and his protege there, the comedic elements that the two of them share as they share screen time, and not to mention just how overpowered he is and how no one believes that he's overpowered, and how difficult it is to really make it as a superhero, in all honesty, not to mention if you're not really that flashy with how you fight. So definitely something to keep an eye on. If you haven't seen One Punch Man, just like My Hero Academia, I mean, what are you doing? I mean, you got to gain an opinion on it at some point. It's one of those like SAO and Attack on Titan. Even though I don't like those two anime, you got to watch it to gain an opinion on it. It's just one of those polarizing shows. Moving on now to number 36. The anime of the year last year, and until season 2 comes out, I can't really put it higher than 36 on my list, but it was a fantastic show about this young girl and this young robot that travel into the depths of the abyss, a giant hole in the center of this kind of, I want to say, village that surrounds this giant gaping hole called the abyss. And the further down you go, the harder it is to get back up. If you go back up in elevation, things start taking place in your body that could eventually kill you. And I gotta say that the character design of this show, from the kind of chibi, cutish design to the very intense moments as the course of the show moves on, honestly, they missed really, really well. At the beginning, you think this is going to be a kind of cute show as this girl tries to find her lost mother who is in the abyss, and it turns into this survival crazy event where things are happening, people are suffering greatly, and we get right at the end of season 1, we see the potential villain. I say potential because, again, it's right at the end of season 1. We don't know for sure. So until season 2 comes out, I can't really put it higher on my list, but I have a lot of hope for season 2 and the future of Made in Abyss. So I would say that it probably will end up higher on my list in a short time. Moving on now to number 35. my love for this show is amazing, and I just gotta say that I really, 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 really want to see more from this show, but I highly doubt we're ever gonna get it, unfortunately. But this is a show about. I mean, I if you guys haven't seen Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, like, come on, you gotta go see Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. I love this show so much. It's about Toru, a dragon who um, basically falls in love with the main character, Miss Kobayashi, and she has this crazy obsession with maids. And when she's drunk one night, she talks to this dragon. The two of them, have drinks, whatever, and she offers for the dragon in her drunken state to stay with her as a maid. And the dragon accepts, much to her disbelief. Um, and it's an absolutely amazing show. One of those shows that it's crazy to me how anime can do this. But when I'm watching normal television shows, you see shows like this all the time, like Simpsons and Family Guy and generic CSI garbage, where every show is different. There's not there might be an overarching plot, but like for the most part, if you skip a couple episodes, you're not going to miss anything. Those type of shows. Um, I don't usually like those shows at all. I really, really, really heavily like plot-driven shows, and to me, those type of shows don't really hold any value, even if there is some comedic elements involved. But Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid continues to draw me in time and time again with its just terrific characters. And while there's no technical plot development over the course of the show, time does pass and you do get to see that a little bit. But if you skipped, episode 3, you might not miss too much. Besides maybe an introduction of a character, which you don't want to miss, to be honest. Fafnir, like if you miss Fafnir, I'm sorry. Um, but you got to see Fafnir. So this show is absolutely terrific. Definitely go watch it if you haven't already. So moving on now to number 34. We're hitting that feels trip with another kind of sad show like Angel Beats. I gotta say, like, this show is absolutely terrific. The vibrant colors, the beautiful music, the development of these two characters as you know, they both develop in not only music but as people. As the main character tries to overcome his not fear, but his kind of inability to play music after all of this time, after what happened with his mother. It's it's absolutely terrific, and of course these two coming together for a climax that is absolutely blowing my mind. It was beautifully written. The music in it is amazing. If you want to sit down and just relax, I mean, the music in this is something that you could just chill and relax to. Um, the main character being a piano player and the female lead being a violinist, and the two of them kind of developing as musicians and developing as people over the course of this show. It's beautiful. It's absolutely amazing. Um, I don't know if it's still on Netflix. I know it used to be on Netflix, but definitely something you should check out. As for all of the top 40, there are things that if you have not watched any of my top 40, I still think that you should immediately put that on your anime to watch list. Um, Moving on now to number 33. One of the best openings of all time, Death Parade, comes in at number 33. And I gotta say, this show was absolutely spectacular. I didn't really know much going into it, but I gotta say, the whole idea of, this bar, I guess, where the mediator makes two people, I believe in all the cases in the show, it's two people. I don't know if there'll ever be more or I doubt there'll be less, but there's always a situation with two people, and based on what happens, they basically play a game, and over the course of the game, whoever that they things get a little bit heated. It's a little bit heavy because they are dead, and the mediator basically tells them that, well, basically the mediator is determining whether they should go to heaven or hell. Basically, in kind of like a purgatory state, and the outcome of the game, as well as the events that transpire throughout the course of the game, are what really um, makes this show good. We get to see kind of these characters. Some know each other, some don't. Um, you know, as they have specific um, damage that's done through these games. For example, in the very first episode, there is a dartboard and it has a bunch of internal organs and stuff on it. And when you hit one of those internal organs, it causes intense, intense pain on the other person in that organ. And so you can obviously sit there and purposely miss so that way they don't feel any pain, or you can try and win the game. They tell you that if you win the game, you basically go to heaven. So, but that's not necessarily the case. The entire job of the mediator is to see what transpires over the course of the game. So definitely something to keep an eye on. If you have not watched it, it is absolutely terrific. And if you don't have the opening song, I mean, if you don't like Bradio, I don't know what you're doing. Dude's amazing. Moving on now to number 32. So Akame ga Kill is the story about this guy Tatsumi and his dream of becoming a knight in the main city. But much to his despair, the main city, the capital city, turns out to be a threshold for evil, and he is basically taken in forcibly by a group of criminals who want to try and fix this evil capital. And basically, he goes on escapades to try and essentially overthrow the government, or at least torture some of the more evil or powerful people in that government. And over the course of the show, it not only questions kind of morality, but we kind of see the desperate attempts that they need to go through in order to beat these people. And we see both sides of the coin, why they think that they are in the right, and why the people who are defending, especially in the second half of the show, the people who are defending the city, why they think they're in the right, and why they believe that this city needs, or what this city needs is different than what Night Raid wants. And over the course of the show, we see a lot of crazy stuff happen. It is one of the more unpredictable shows, in my opinion, especially the ending. I think a lot of people. It's kind of one of those things where you question, all right, well, who are the people that are going to survive in this show? Is it going to be Tatsumi, the main character? Is it going to be some of these other characters? Is it going to be Esdeath, who is fucking amazing, by the way? I have her poster hanging on the wall. it's a terrific show that really I think that is really impressive in a lot of ways. Moving on now to number 31.
I don't want nobody to get killed.
So this is a show I'd like again to have higher, but until we get a season 3, it really disappointed me with the ending. Basically, the story is about a time where vampires have successfully eliminated the majority of mankind. They've found a way to release a biomedical hazard that basically kills anyone over a certain age. Um, and they've captured the vast majority of people in Japan and most likely the rest of the world, though we don't have any necessary confirmation about that throughout the show because I mean Japan is the entire world in most anime, you know. Um, but the main character, Hyakuya, right? Hyakuya. I'm pretty sure that's his name because I like saying Hyakuya. Um, and his group of basically orphans are living together in this city, I guess, owned by the vampires, and his dream is to help get them to escape. And one day he tries to do that. Um, Basically, it's over the course of the show, Hyakuya continues his fight against the vampires and tries to rebel against them over the course of the show, and things get really intense as vampires begin to try and wage war on those survivors who have made it outside the city and have built um, basically cities, fortified cities, to keep the vampires at bay. Um, So it's definitely really good. It's a lot of fighting in it as well if you're into action anime, but definitely something to keep an eye on there. So moving on now to number 30. This show is I have little words for how amazing this show is. Snow White with red hair is about this girl who is a herbalist, an herbalist. She seems to have attracted unwanted attention, the prince of her home kingdom, and the prince wants her to be a concubine. So obviously, the most rational thing to do is to cut your hair off and run away. Yes, but she runs away into this into the woods where she meets this boy Zen, who is about her age, and she decides to follow him back to his home kingdom. And basically, it's about her development as a person as she goes to this new country, as she figures out what she wants to do, as she falls in love with Zen, as she decides her own fate and her own path. It's absolutely amazing, and she is definitely one of my favorite female lead characters. You don't see a lot of main female love interests that are driven by themselves. You know, there are a lot of times, sure, when she has to be saved by Zen, but she gets out of a lot of situations on her own and she's able to protect Zen at some point. She is one of the strongest female leads that I know, and the story of how she continues to help out Prince Zen and determine her own path and what she wants to do as she tries to get into the court, the royal court of the kingdom, and be a court herbalist and be there for the person that she loves and admires. It's really awe-inspiring, and she's an amazing inspiration to me as a person. There are a lot of amazing characters in this show, and the story itself, the plot that this show has is absolutely terrific. Not to mention the ending is actually rather satisfactory. Um, so I've got to say that um, that definitely makes a difference. We move on now to number 29.
So everything that makes me whole 今君に捧げよう I'm your world
I'm trying to keep these summaries brief, but Guilty Crown, oh man, I this is another one that I own on the shelves, and the entire world has been relatively destroyed by a virus called the Apocalypse virus that happened to break out on Christmas Day, and it killed or infected the vast majority of people in Japan. Again, Japan seems to be the entire world, so that's all we really get. But the main character is a wimp. Absolutely can't really do anything, and he falls into the situation of this girl Inori and her kind of escape from the evil government. The government is basically eradicating anyone who has the apocalypse virus to make sure that they don't infect anyone else. Anyone who has the virus is secluded to a certain area and sometimes even exterminated on the spot. Inori is running away with a secret vial that she has, and works for a evil, but I don't want to say evil, it's not an evil organization, a rebel organization called Funeral Parlor. And Funeral Parlor's main goal, obviously, is to stop this evil tyrannical government from murdering off people. So, obviously, this weak wimp character tries to become someone who Inori can rely on and respect, and his development over the course of the show is one of the most interesting and well done character developments that I know of in recent memory, or of even any show on this list. To be honest, it is one of the top 5, if not the top, best character development I have seen ever. It is really, really, really good. As he starts off from a wimp and tries to become someone that Inori can trust. And towards the middle of the show is when things go a little bit awry for him. Things start to take a little bit more of shape as something happens that basically puts him and Funeral Parlor and everyone in the entire city in a panic. And what happens from there, you'll have to watch the anime to find out. But let me just comment real quick and a non-spoiler comment about the ending. Ooh. The ending made me cry. And it was amazing. It was amazing. You could not have ended the show much better than that. And as they say, the ending is paramount. Absolutely amazing. Well done job. Moving on now to number 28. So again, this is anime series, so Love Live, the original, and Love Live Sunshine fall under the same umbrella. So they both get locked in here at number 28. As for the first season of Love Live, a group of talented girls become school idols in order to get people to apply to their school and save it from being closed down. And it's an absolutely terrific story, one of my favorites. that they have, and I gotta say, it's really, really well done. The second season, well, the second show, Love Live Sunshine, um, at first didn't have the same kind of appeal as the first show did. It was kind of like, oh, well, they really liked the Muses, the group that, was in the first season, and they wanted to aspire to be like the Muses. And I gotta say that at first it didn't seem all that crazy, but over the course of the show, they really struggled to make any sort of impact. It was absolutely terrific. They went to a show and, well, let's just say it did not go very well. And their story is a little bit different than the Muses. See, the Muses want to go and save their school. They have something to strive for, and you kind of see it over the course of that first season as they develop as a group together. They get all of the people, they draw in interest, and they eventually get to the grand stage Love Live. In the second show is when things get a little bit more interesting, in my opinion. To be honest, at first I thought the beginning of the second season made it seem like the first season was significantly better, but the second season, or the second show, Love Live Sunshine, really did the underdog story amazing justice, and it was absolutely terrific. You have to watch Love Live if you're a fan of school idol shows, and even if you're not, if you like Japanese music, this is definitely something you should watch. I have every song from the Love Live series on my iPod. It's absolutely terrific. I definitely recommend watching this show, even if you just like kind of the underdog story, or, I mean, they're both really the underdog story, but I gotta say, the end of the first show and the end of the second show really got to me. They were both really, really well done endings, so definitely something you should watch. Moving on now to number 27.
交わした約束忘れないよ目を閉じ確かめる押し寄せた闇振り放って進むよ
I mean, you couldn't do a top 100 anime list without the great Madoka Magica, the very first destruction of the magical girls genre, where magical girls become really dark and intense. And it was really, really well done. While the show was a little bit predictable, the ending was absolutely terrific. I mean, the ending was pretty impressive. But this show really takes the magical girl genre and turn it on its head. It was the very first one to do that. Nowadays, with the show I just finished watching the other day, which I feel like would make this list, Magical Girl Sight, along with other shows that are destructions of the magical girl genre, this was the very first. I cannot give it enough credit for that alone. But not to mention the fact that the story and the characters were really, really, really well done. To make Magical Girls this, at least before this show, this really cutesy, really young audience-intended show about girls gaining magical cute powers and having these magical transformation sequences, into this dark show where what do you have to exchange for those powers? What do you have to sacrifice to keep this world safe as a magical girl? What does it cost? And it's just really, really well done. One of the earlier shows that I watched, and it made me fall in love with the magical girl genre all over again. Moving on now to number 26. The show's really good. I'm a little disappointed season 2 never got a dub. Not because I personally care too much, but because it really knocks a lot of people from watching the show. In the first season, it's kind of confusing because it's based off a visual novel and it has all of the different scenes. It keeps going back. You'll see the first 2 episodes, everything will be nice and cutesy, and then everyone will go insane and everybody, holy shit, And then it goes back a little bit. Not all the way to the front, but it goes back a little bit, where the main character makes a little bit of a different choice, and then everything else changes. And it's a psychological horror show. If you are easily disturbed or whatever, insert Doki Doki's warning here. Hopefully you read it, because some people, I guess, don't. But Higurashi is absolutely really well done. I really want to play the visual novel at some point, but I mean, spending like $70 for a visual novel seems a little bit out of my price range right now. But this show is absolutely terrific, but you have to watch season 2 to know what's going on. So you have to be okay watching the sub for season 2. And season 2 is really, really, really well done. They do explain the entire situation pretty well. Obviously, it's got some magical elements in it with Frika and all of that, but definitely something to keep an eye on for sure. Moving on now to number 25. Another very cute romance anime about this basically autistic but very, very, very talented artist who is living in this dorm of very special people. The main character is only living in this dorm because he likes to take in stray cats and he got kicked out of the original school's dorm room, so he had to go to the special dorm. There he meets these array of characters that all have their own quirks and are all very interesting people. And this kind of love story kind of continues to develop between him and the two main female leads as they both kind of basically fall in love with this guy. And man, the story is really, really well done. The characters in question, even the minor characters, are really, really well put together. Not to mention that even the side love story of these 4 characters that also are consistently a part of this dorm are really, really, really well put together. The ups, the downs, the drama, the funny hilarity of her inability to act like a regular human being. It's just so well put together, and the ending is intense. I mean, it's happy but sad. The bittersweet ending is just. It's really, really well done. It's really, really well done. Definitely one you should keep an eye out for if you like romance, which, if you like romance, you should keep an eye on the next one as well. Number 24.
If only your voices speak at night could ever reach the very edge of this world and the time, instead of fading into air and dust, then what will the words could ever be?
So we got another movie up in here, and movies, I want to try and put them down a little bit because they are movies. It's hard for me to determine whether a movie should be given special treatment over an anime series. But it's an anime. It's part of a show. My goodness, my lighting is so bad. I have the light on and this is all I got. But the show, everyone should know this show by now. If you watch anime, you should know what Your Name is and you should probably freaking watch it. Just saying. Definitely should watch it. The story revolves around these 2 characters. that switch bodies basically every other day for a while, and kind of their story as they try and figure out who each other are, and this kind of almost weird, lovey connection they have. It's kind of hard to explain or put into words. And they try to kind of figure out who the other is, and where they are and what's going on. It's really, really well done, and the twist at the middle to the end is absolutely terrific. If you haven't watched Your Name, it's a movie. You only got to sit down for like 2 hours. It's absolutely amazing. It's dubbed and subbed, obviously, and you need to do that. Moving on now to number 23.
静けき森の中今目覚めた花たち
So if this show did not have the prequel and the sequel, I would not have even had this on my top 100 list because the ending of the original season is so atrocious. But they saved the show with the prequel and sequel and made it perfect. It's really hard to put this above Madoka Magica because of Madoka being first, but I enjoyed this series a lot more. I have to say that the ending of the original season killed everything for me. The intensity of what was going on up until that final episode was spectacular. It drew me in. I needed to know what happened next, what happened. Basically, these girls are chosen to be magical girls by this system, and they're given the ability to transform and fight these monsters. But if the monsters seem to be a little bit too powerful, they can go Bankai. Now, Bankai is the ability to surpass your limits at the expense of one of your basically one of I don't want to say it's not ligaments, it's just sacrificing something of yourself. Whether it be maybe you can't move your right arm, maybe you can't taste anything, maybe you can't see, maybe you can't hear. But if they don't fight, the entire world will be engulfed in darkness and destroyed by these giant evil creatures. And every time that they do damage to this world, real people in the real world die. And they have a lot of problems on their shoulders. It's very intense. The prequel is the best part of this entire series. The prequel of how Bankai originally started, about the chick that they met in the hospital. You'll have to see the show to know what I mean. All of that was what made it really worth it, and not to mention the ending. It explains why things happened the way they did in that ending, and it kind of gives us a little bit more closure to the actual end of the show, and it is so well done. If they had not done the sequel and the prequel, I would not have even had this show on my top 100, but here it is sitting at number 23. You need to watch this show. Whether you like Madoka Magica or not, I really honestly believe that the sequel and the prequel, as far as I know, have only gotten subs. The original show does have a dub, but it is absolutely amazing. And you will see one of the characters that appears in the prequel, the 6-episode prequel, in my um, top 150 anime list near the top, and you definitely need to see that. She is one hell of an amazing person. Her name's Gin, and you definitely I just gotta say you gotta watch it. The prequel, I about died from crying, and it's kind of insane to think about. what happened beforehand that led up to Yuki Yuna becoming the hero, and all of the stuff that happened in the original the original season. Definitely something you should go watch. Moving on now to number 22.
愛し愛し合うのさもっと激しい渇きに狂いそう目を閉じて
So Shiki is about basically vampires trying to overthrow a city. They're a rural city in the middle of the suburbs without any rhyme or reason to believe vampires even exist. And this is a really, really well done psychological horror show about vampires basically trying to take the entire city as their own. And I have to say that it's an amazing show. You definitely need to go watch it. I own it. It's right up there in that on that shelf. I'm looking right at it. It is amazing. You know, we get to see, you know, the struggle of what it would be like if vampires really did just exist right now. No one would believe that vampires would exist right now. If people started dying left and right in a village, they would look for logical answers. You wouldn't jump to the conclusion that, hey, well, maybe it's vampires. You know what I'm saying? It's a very realistic approach to what would happen if vampires legitimately tried to take up an uprising in a rural city, away from police and video cameras and stuff like that. It's really, really well done and put together, and I think that um, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. So moving on now to the final one of this episode, number 21. So we have another movie here, and a very sad one at that. It's a very popular film. It's another one. If you haven't seen this movie, it takes a couple hours. You should definitely go watch it. But it's basically about Japan and World War II. And I mean, if that doesn't give you any indication about how depressing and intense this show is going to be, I don't know what is. I don't really know what else to say about the show other than that, but it is definitely one that you should go and watch. Brilliant scenery, brilliant development of the characters and the story, and my heart hurts just thinking about it. So thank you all for watching this episode. Make sure you click that like button down below for me if you do want to share your thoughts on my top 100 anime list and maybe even predictions on my top 20, which will appear in the next episode. Be sure to comment in the comment section down below for me. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already for future content, and we'll see you all next time.